Hello, I'm Dr. Pamela Ruig. I hold the David J. Ellis Chair in Large Animal Clinical Sciences at Michigan State University. And in this video about key performance indicators, I'm going to be discussing how we measure and manage clinical mastitis. Clinical mastitis is defined when we can actually see visual signs of the inflammation in the cow. Visual signs can be mild, meaning that we have only abnormal milk. They can be moderate, meaning we have abnormal milk and a swollen quarter, or in a small minority of cases, the cow may actually be sick and will have a severe case of mastitis. Now, it's really important that milking technicians are trained to detect and record all severities of clinical mastitis. It's especially important that they find those mild cases where the only clinical sign is abnormal milk, because those mild cases are about 50% of all the cases of severe mastitis. So clinical mastitis occurs frequently, but the severe form of it occurs rarely. So one of the important take-homes from this video is you need to be detecting and recording all cases. And to do that, the milking technicians must remove and observe foremilk, and then have a mechanism to record the cases that they find of all severities. So if we're doing a good job of detecting and recording all severities of clinical mastitis, we can go ahead and calculate some key performance indicators that'll help us manage that disease in the herd. The first thing we want to do is make sure we're recording the first cases of clinical mastitis to determine the incidence rate. The incidence rate is calculated simply. We just count the number of first cases of clinical mastitis occurring in cows, and we divide by the average number of lactating cows in the herd. Our goal for incidence is less than 25 cases per 100 cows per year. If we look at that on a monthly basis, that's less than 2 cases or 2% per 100 cows per month. That's an important key performance indicator, but it only is used to measure the first cases. The second cases we keep track of by measuring the recurrence rate. The recurrence rate means that we're counting the number of second cases of clinical mastitis and dividing by the number of first cases. So in that instance, the recurrence rate of clinical mastitis should be less than 25% of cases. If you're wondering where these goals come from, it's from analyzing hundreds of records on dozens of herds. And these goals for both incidence and for recurrence are very achievable. About half the herds that we've measured usually achieve these values. And then finally, going back to the severity scores, another goal, and which helps us assess the adequacy of detection, is to calculate the proportion of cases that are severe. And if our milking technicians are detecting and recording all cases, including the milds, then the severe cases should only be about 5 to 15% of all cases. That's a good quality control metric for us to kind of assess how the detection is going. All right, let's recap. Observation of foremilk is necessary to detect clinical mastitis. About 50% of clinical cases of mastitis have only abnormal milk, and so we need to record severity scores. And then finally, first cases and recurrent cases should be assessed separately because they're really separate problems and they need to be managed separately on the farm.